What is up? We are back with another episode of Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here, and today we have a special guest, good friend of mine, Chair. How you doing, brother?
I am excellent. I
Awesome.
am still figuring my shit out, though I thought I was good, but I think we're good now. I'm excellent, JD. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, man. Kiara's out today. I don't know, probably partying in the woods somewhere or some nonsense. So when the cat is away, the mice will play. So today we're talking about a whole bunch of shit, but mainly some UK financial regulation stuff, what they're saying about Binance in the UK at the moment. We're talking about the IMF's new CBDC structure, which I'm not a fan of. And we will talk about that. I'm pretty sure Chair and I live on, generally I'm a pretty good fan of regulation because I believe it, whether we like it or not, it's coming. You, my friend, I believe, have a much different opinion of regulation and the nanny state. So it'll be fun to talk about that. We'll be talking about some central banks, and there's 30 different use cases for CBDCs that at least are being presented globally. And we'll talk about a few other things, Deutsche Bank, Crypto Slate, a few exchanges in Australia, et cetera, et cetera. We got a whole bunch of shit to talk about. In the meantime, want to remind everybody, like, share, subscribe, please. We do this just to spread the love, spread as much insight as we possibly can. We do not take sponsorships from anybody. Nobody pays to be here or anything, with the one exception. My merch is generally sponsored. So shout out quickly to Dragonfly. This is one of their new rebrand logos. Super neat. If you're not familiar with Dragonfly, it's VC in the space. We're good friends with the group there. Hasib has been essentially a mentor for years, and they're doing some great shit. So shout out to Dragonfly. With that, my friend, let's fucking go. Well, holy shit. That is 2 episodes in a row that I played the old video. But there we go. Now I'm on Spaces. Yeah, fuck it. All right, let's go. So before we jump into it, bro, what kind of stuff are you working on? Just share with people a little bit, maybe about Infinity Keys and some of the other things you're doing, just so people can get some context.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, JD, for having me. I'm very excited, bright and early. This Thursday morning, be coming at you. I am Chair. I'm at Very Comfy, VRYCMFY, everywhere on all the socials. And .lenses, I am the project manager, community manager, main marketer, janitor, and your friend at Infinity Keys, infinitykeys.io. We are puzzle games based in the Web3 paradigm. We are, you can think of us as Da Vinci Code puzzles mixing with Wordle or Sudoku or other daily puzzle games that you might have played in the past. We want you to exercise your brain, and we want to do it using all of the power that Web3 gives us with no cost to the player and only rewards coming your way. Infinity Keys, there's treasure everywhere. That is my main project.
Love it. Just before you move on to your other stuff, I'm also an advisor for Infinity Keys. Andy and team are great friends, have been for a long time. If you are listening or watching today and you run a project, Infinity Keys is an amazing marketing collaboration. If you're interested, if you're just a participant in Web3, the puzzles are a lot of fun. Like there's tons of them. They're challenging. There's some incredible minds building these things, and it's really cool. It's really a very intriguing platform. I'm excited. Great to have you here. What else? What other stuff you guys working on? You got a whole bunch of projects that you represent, Chair. Do you want to list them off quickly, and then we'll move on?
Absolutely. I am a Raid Guild member. I am a Metagame member. I am a member of the Meta Cartel, the Avagachi DAO, and I'm on the Thank Avagachi board. So if anyone is contributing to Avagachi and is looking to get rewarded for it, doing me favors goes a long way.
Shameless personal plug. Yeah,
So yeah, just to name a few, I'm a hardcore texture punk supporter.
beauty.
And among other things, I've been around for a while, and you know, rugged a few times, couple two, three,
Those
four,
are,
five, 10.
yeah, those are badges of honor that we all have to wear, right? How many times have you been rugged? How many times have you been exploited? How much gas have you spent over the last,
Oh
5 years?
lordy,
That one's scary.
that one hurts my heart.
That one sucks. Yeah. All right, let's jump in. We got Ocean Block again. What's up, brother? Looks like Kiara just couldn't stay away. She's also listening in today on Spaces. We've got a few people listening live on YouTube, Twitch, and looks like Twitter. So we got people everywhere. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about to set things up, I think, is Binance's UK unit. So as we all know, we've been talking about this for a bit. Binance really made some missteps over the last little bit, and it's all kind of been exposed now. As you can imagine, Binance was, working closely with the UK because UK has been fairly regulation forward in the last little bit in conjunction with the EU. They're obviously not the same, but they're very close to each other. And they're now canceling all of the permissions that Binance originally had. So the Financial Conduct Authority has said, you know what, until this all gets sorted out, all of the issues with the SEC and all of these things globally, we're going to put a pause on this. I know that you're not a fan of centralized entities, Chair. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you think UK is doing the right thing here?
Right or wrong, probably probably not. I imagine that there's a similar head fake or lack of backroom deal that transpired between those at Binance and those in power in the UK, and thus we are seeing this public display of sort of a head fake and going back in the other direction from the regulation people. It coincides. How many weeks offset is that from the head fake that we saw from our own near and dear U.S. government, and now BlackRock goes all in not 1 week later or so, and now is the same thing happening in the UK? I would ask myself, are they running the same play over there? And then all of a sudden, some other player is gonna just come in and kick Binance right out the door, which it seems like it's happened in the US to an extent, and now it's happening in the UK.
Well, I think Coinbase has been courting the UK government quite a bit. I think it was less than a month ago. All the executives, including Brian, were over there in the UK meeting with government officials, policymakers, regulators. So you might be right. I mean, I often wear a tin hat, and so this whole thing with the SEC and stuff, although I don't want to, start or perpetuate conspiracies.
No, let's go.
It seemed a little weird, hasn't it? Like it's kind of been a little fucking strange. Like all of a sudden they're cracked down on everybody, litigation, lawsuits, crypto sucks. There's no utility, this, that, and the other thing. And then in the next breath, the largest asset managers in the world in one giant wave are all applying for ETFs. Like,
I'm not surprised at this point, and it would be sad if I was still surprised at this point. If you've been paying attention for, even a little bit, look at the relationship, and it was memed to death. And I wish it wasn't. I wish it was still going because it shouldn't die. The connection between SBF Caroline, their fathers, and Gensler, and that MIT so cozy connection. Don't trust anything that comes out of MIT. I'll say that publicly.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting one, bro. Like, I don't want to think that we could possibly have such a well orchestrated conspiracy, but
they're using the old playbooks, man. They're using the old playbooks. They're not. It's an old establishment. It's the oldest power. It's still in power. But they're using playbooks, assuming that it's still 1985, and the only access people have to media is their televisions and newspapers and Time magazine. And so they're running plays like that in 2023. It's too easy for everybody saw it. Everybody saw it right away. And it became a meme, and it flew. And just like, you know what else became a meme and it flew, and then everybody forgot about the gravity of it. And I like not to go so far, but let's say, the guy who didn't kill himself, that guy who didn't kill himself, you know,
Yeah,
and all the it's a
Epstein.
joke. Oh, he didn't kill himself. Ha 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 ha. He didn't kill himself. And it's like, oh, Caroline and SBF and Gensler and this connection. LOL, LOL. It's so funny. It's like, is it? Isn't it? It's hilarious, and it becomes a meme and a joke, and like, no, we should remember this connection because this is the play that everybody runs over and over. So to tie it to the UK, there's some sort of scheme like that going on. There's some sort of triangle with, you know, whoever I'm less aware of who the personalities are over there in England, like from that perspective, because I'm a sheltered American and lack exposure and culture.
You can probably point it out though on a map, which is like puts you ahead of the majority here. So
I know where
where's
Wales
the UK?
is. I know exactly where Wales is.
There you go.
So I imagine, because the UK and the United States do have such a special relationship, special cozy relationship, that there are similar things happening over there.
I would agree. I mean, we could probably move on from the UK, but we are not immune from, you know, global kind of TradFi incumbents trying to come in and take over crypto now that it's got some stickiness. I think that's been one of the most interesting revelations, is even admit, you know, with all of this kind of regulatory scrutiny and public backlash, I think very vocal minorities talking shit about crypto and blockchain, it's remained sticky. You know, that we've had obviously a pretty violent bear market, but all things considered, especially BTC and ETH have held really well. I mean, I think both, last time I checked, and especially after yesterday, are above 50% in profit. So about 50% or more of both of those asset holders are currently in profit, which is incredible, all things considered, in my opinion. So I think people are starting to realize, as evidenced by BlackRock, Citadel, Valkyrie, who else?
Yeah.
Deutsche Bank, Charles Schwab, like pretty much everybody is all of a sudden piling on. Invesco, Wisdom Tree, et cetera, et cetera. These are multi-trillion-dollar asset managers. Like this isn't peanuts anymore. We're not talking about a couple billionaires in the Winklevi that are a big, meaningful, powerful lobby. You know, will be interesting. Okay, sorry, I'll introduce this one and then I'll let you go on it. I suspect you and I both have a very similar opinion on CBDCs. I am not a fan, and I'm not a fan of CBDCs because of the slippery slope situation that it puts us in. And so what I mean by that, are you unable to hear from
okay, I'm synced back. No, yeah, I'm synced back in now. Everything rugged me for a second, but now I'm back.
Shit. Okay. Well, you're there. So I don't love CBDCs. I'm not a fan. I believe it's a big, icy, slippery slope. I think, you know, it's kind of like socialism. And we don't want to get too political, but it's like socialism in the sense that on paper, in theory, socialism sounds like it would work really well. Everybody lives a great life. Everybody has everything they need, yada, yada. But in practice, that's not what happens. And I suspect with CBDCs, it's going to be the same shit. They're talking about, oh, we'll SWIFT system with CBDCs, and, you know, international transfers will be cheap and quick and amazing. What they don't talk about is all of the control and unfettered power that they then have, visibility into your finances. You have effectively zero privacy. They could block everything at any point in time. Anyways, all of this to set up, the IMF is now suggesting that they should come up with a new global CBDC platform. And I'm going to get your thoughts on this in a second, where I think this is interesting. We talked a little bit about this with Swift partnering with Chainlink, trying to kind of figure out how to do international payments on the back of blockchain instead of in the antiquated, banking system. And why can I not think of the phrase? There's like intermediary banks in all of this. And yeah, it's a freaking nightmare. But anyways, so the IMF is doing the same thing. They're saying, oh shit, our entire business model is about to be wiped off the face of the earth. Let's try to use what influence we have. What are your thoughts on this? How do you feel about CBDCs?
Well, it's a death rattle, and the very a friend of mine says it best. Like, we don't need banks anymore, and the banks know that. And these are death rattle plays, and they will exhaust as much power and influence as they can. But in reality, your favorite DeFi platform, be it Aave, Yearn, Curve, whatever, or the combination of all of those, Popsicle, whatever, Cream, whatever, is way better of is a much better option
True.
than any of the banks that you deposit your paychecks into or take loans from. And the more that this infrastructure builds out, the less we're going to need them. I love something like TBTC, the trustless Bitcoin. Very, very flies very low under the radar, but is a wonderful thing. And there's so many out there like that now, where you can completely, or you can, for now at least, use your crypto value in the real world and leverage that for things like mortgages and what have you. Soon, and as soon as more governments come along, like El Salvador is here, and others in Portugal, and the more brave governments, and now who knows how orchestrated all of that will be, as they're really just test grounds for the United States and other places. But as more governments come on board, and you won't have to make that migration from on-chain to whatever chain it is back to the 2D world, we are not going to need the IMF. We already don't need the IMF. We never needed the IMF. What we need is gold, but that's another conversation altogether. So this play with the IMF and CBDC, I hate CBDCs. It's a terrible idea. This is exactly how you do a social credit score.
Exactly.
And it's really easy to blacklist on a smart contract, right? Like, these addresses can never use a thing. Like, you think the governments won't use that? You think the IMF won't use that? You think they aren't using that already to a certain degree?
See, I'm Canadian, so I've got. I lived in Canada when that trucker convoy happened.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but it was crazy, man. Like, they legitimately used emergency powers at the federal level to freeze bank accounts. And they did it they froze bank accounts across the board of thousands and thousands of people, even people that weren't physically there. If you had any financial interaction with anybody that was there, imagine you sent a Venmo, the Canadian version of a Venmo, to one of your family members who happens to be there. Now, all of a sudden, your bank is frozen. And there was no appeals. There was no timeline. There was nothing. Again, to me, that's like the most glaring example of what could very easily happen. When governments have an opportunity to grab power, they, of course, take it. You made a really good point. Now I lost my train of thought here on this one. CBDCs, gold.
IMF, death rattles.
Yeah, the banks. That's what I was going to say. So, in a lot of ways, we still kind of need banks today. But I think, to your point, we're pretty freaking close. I think that a lot of the tooling, a lot of the on and off ramp infrastructure, a lot of the point of sale infrastructure, and most importantly, at least from my perspective, being able to bring credit on and off chain so that it actually follows you as a human being, will allow all of these kind of credit products that exist currently in traditional finance do not exist currently in on-chain finance, mainly because there's no repercussion. If I don't over collateralize a loan or a position somewhere, and I walk away, they have no way to enforce the loan. When credit becomes a thing, which it already is, there's a few. I think Nexera is a good group. We talked a lot on the show about Quadrata, good friends of ours, partners of ours. They're already bringing TransUnion credit on and off chain, dual direction reporting. So you can bring credit on chain, and you can report your on chain credit to your TransUnion, your global TransUnion score, which is pretty amazing in a lot of ways. And so I'm with you, man. I think, we're on the precipice here of regulation, whether we love it or not, will, in my opinion, expedite the process with which we get to meaningful point of sale. But we don't need CBDCs. The point of all of this is that we don't need a CBDC to facilitate this. We already have assets that work perfectly fine. But here's the problem. And my challenge with CBDCs, and the reason that I think they're going to fight tooth and nail, and we're going to have a really hard time opposing them at a global scale, is because monetary policy in most Western countries is predicated on being able to print money. And so as soon as they no longer control the main fiat in any jurisdiction, they've lost that control. They've lost the ability as a government to be able to spend into oblivion, write credit notes that they never end up back, that we're eventually just going to print money to pay for. I think, again, this is a pretty darn slippery slope. We've also got other global institutions, including the Bank of International Settlements, which is another institution that will become redundant. You don't need the International Settlements Bank if you're dealing in crypto. It's super simple. It all happens very quickly. You don't need many of these institutions, but they're pulling all of these kind of test cases in. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're going to see CBDCs whether we like it or not, or what do you think is going to happen here?
I do think so. I think the attempt will be, it's whether or not we use them, which will be the ultimate test. Now, what they're going to do is run a psyop to make everybody, and they already are. Like my 70 some odd year old uncle is I use him as a sounding board, and sort of just to see where we're at. Where like he went completely anti crypto and Bitcoin because the news tells him that it's off. It's competing with the American dollar. And soon, and I'm waiting for him to flip to, we need CBDCs to compete with Bitcoin because that's going to be the best way, because who uses money anymore, and so I think that when it's convenient, it's not convenient anymore, and that's the point. It's not convenient. They're fucked and they know it. But when it's time, they're going to flip the narrative through their channels to, we need CBDCs and here's why, emotions. So the boomers and beyond are going to go, yeah, of course we need CBDCs. And it's going to be up to everyone younger than them to not use them. Basically, just don't use them, because if you
my only concern, that's a really good point, and we've seen this with, again, this is a weird example, regardless of what side you fit on the transing the kids, where your opinion is on transing the kids. We've seen that there's a lot of influence that consumers have by just simply not using products. Bud Light, obviously, probably the most obvious example in the United States, lost billions and billions and billions of dollars for representing something that the general population just didn't support, or their customer base didn't support. And I think that if we use that as an example of the power we have, the power of our individual purse, we seem insignificant. It's like the power of the vote. Does your one vote count? Yes, because if everybody assumed it didn't count, nobody would have a vote. It's very similar here, and I think you're absolutely correct.
Everything has meme power. Everything has meme power. So if you're the one voice in the room that's anti, they still want, if there's 99 and you're the one that's anti, they still want to smush you out because you have power. And what if your voice has Pepe power, and then all of a sudden your voice is 10 voices and now they have to, and that's what happened. That's what happened with them in 2008. That's why we're here right now, is that there was one voice that they didn't squash out, or didn't squash out quick enough. And all of a sudden there's a lot more voices. 2023. Yeah.
Totally agree. I think there's just so much amazing potential, and the innovative opportunity here. This is very much the tip of the iceberg. Like, we've barely scratched the surface of sophisticated financial products, of composability and interoperability in a meaningful way. I mean, in 5 to 10 years from now, I think it'll be absolutely incredible to look back and say, like, what did we actually accomplish? Now we're using blockchain everywhere. Fast forward to the future a bit, we're using blockchain everywhere, but nobody really even has to know. They don't know what chain they're on. They don't know that they bridged or all of this other nonsense. Like, a lot of that will just become abstracted. And when that happens, look out. I mean, fiat is in for a reckoning, in my opinion. But
it's coming, and we're so close to it.
It's not CBDCs that take over.
We're in it, and we're in it every day, and we're so close to it that we don't. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I'm getting rugged again. Okay, I think we are synced up. We're so close to it, and we're in it, that we don't realize how fast it really is moving. And if you think about from 2008 to 2016 and to almost 8 years later, now, that shift is going to happen in one generation. It's going to be 25 years, and we're going to be there. You know what I mean? So it's
very similar. I think very, very similar to how the internet progressed, right? I mean, .com in the 90s was kind of like a little bit romantic. Not everybody looked at the internet as meaningfully underpinning society. And you fast forward, almost exactly 25 years from meaningful proliferation of the internet. And now if the internet is down, you can't do shit. Like my refrigerator doesn't work if the internet is down. Like nothing works. Everything just stops. And I think we'll see something very similar. You're 100% correct. I think one generation, this is a transformative technology, maybe not quite to the extent of AI in terms of like overhauling society as we know it. But I think the financial impact globally is going to be incredible. Okay, so the UK Parliament votes in favor of their new bill. What are your thoughts on this one? Have you read it? Have you read into it very much? It's the Financial Services and Markets Bill. Did you read into this?
I didn't. So but I'll still comment. No, I'm just kidding. No.
I can set it up quickly. Just in that. So essentially, what the UK is saying is that crypto is and should be a regulated activity. They wanted to originally enhance their regulatory powers, but what they've done, and you got to give the UK credit here. Actually, I've got some partners that live in the UK who are pretty bullish on the regulation coming out of the UK, because it does treat, as far as we can see, it treats crypto assets as their own asset class. Although they're regulated, they've acknowledged in the UK that they are not exactly securities. They are not exactly commodities. In some cases, they should be considered those. But there's a third classification that I think is pretty interesting. We're just waiting now. In the UK, they have the parliamentary system, which is a lot different than the US. But now we're waiting for the other house to approve this. They have the House of Lords and then the lower house. I don't know exactly how it works. It's kind of confusing. But yeah, and then sent to the king, of course, which is also seems like it's out of like.
The Brits love to flaunt how progressive they are, yet they still have a House of Lords, wear wigs, and a king. So, But I love you.
Isn't that true? This one, like I've been a big proponent of the UK's approach to this, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, France. I mean, regardless of what we think about regulation, I've said this a lot. We're all going to probably hate it. Like when it comes out, we're going to be like, shit. This is a pain in my ass as a user. It's a pain in my ass as an entrepreneur, as running a platform. There's all this compliance overhead now and all of these things we have to do. But at the same time, it's coming whether we like it or not, in my opinion. And
this feels right on.
The UK.
This feels like a third classification feels right on. Like I wonder how sinister or not this movement might be. Like if they're starting to publicly acknowledge and work through things. A third that sounds like the way to go to begin with. It is its own thing. Let's not tax every transaction. Let's look at things logically. So that sounds very good on its face. I always go back to it with the UK and honestly with the United States as well. It's like, yeah, but then the House of Lords and the wigs and who's making the decision at the end, really, and on whose behalf and why. But on its face, this is great. And I mean, the United States is starting to fall behind on a lot of things. And I hope that we can take the lead and get that. And it seems like there's a lot of seemingly younger congressmen who are starting to nip and really push things along. If you take the Gensler hearing stuff at face value, they're very concerned about the American people. And then, hey, Mr. Gensler, I don't know. That's all it showed to me. But it seems like we're going that way.
Well, I mean, I think I've mentioned this a few times on the show too. But I mean, somewhere between 30 and 40% of U.S. Citizens have or continue to hold crypto. So have held or continue to hold crypto. That is a very, very large chunk of the electorate. And so for anybody that's used digital assets, other than people that bought into scams on, NFT Instagram or NFT Twitter or some nonsense, most people see the advantages. They understand it's a novel emerging technology. There's a lot of friction still, but it makes sense to most people why this will become a fairly appealing industry. And so I think we'll see a lot more pressure. I'm with you though. Like the US better figure their shit out pretty quick here. And I mean, I live in the US, so obviously I have a horse in the race here, but we better figure it out quick. Even Brian, Armstrong from Coinbase has said multiple times. I mean, there's nothing necessarily preventing Coinbase from leaving the US, and that would be a massive blow.
There's nothing preventing a lot of the United States citizens from leaving the U.S. And the U.S. like, and honestly, like maybe that's what they're angling for. The country that will take the lead on this in a bold way is going to win in a big way.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about Japan right now, honestly.
Japan, Singapore's done some really progressive things. Same thing as you were saying with respect to the UK. Singapore's, as far as I understand, they've got like a kind of a third classification that says some securities rules work, some commodities rules work, but there's some nuance here. Let's approach it that way. Japan, like you said, has been very progressive. Hong Kong, if we want to believe that Hong Kong is acting independently from China, they've got some pretty interesting rules. I've got some good friends over there that are getting licenses as we speak for exchanging, for hedge funds, for investment funds. It's pretty compelling. And here we are in the US. Nobody can get a damn thing approved except for Prometheum somehow, which is a story in and of itself. We talked about that conspiracy theory last week. But we'll see, man. I mean, Canada's gone the opposite way. They've said everything's a security. Fuck it. Just follow the securities rules for all crypto assets. And they made it relatively easy to accommodate those rules in Canada. That there was only a month to come into compliance, but they made it pretty easy. So there was a lot of roll-ups that happened. A lot of companies left Canada, but then there's a lot of good companies now that are adhering to the rules. And although I don't love them, it sucks being a Canadian because you can't participate in anything similar to being American. You just get blocked out of all the apps. So I mean, eventually people will get annoyed and we'll be able to roll with it. All right, my friend, we are out of time. I think we could talk for hours. I'd love to have you back.
Definitely.
Care, especially for a DGen day. I think you've got a lot of insight into the world of degeneracy. I mean that with love.
Definitely.
It'd be great to have you back. Any final thoughts? Where can people follow you? Where can people learn more about Infinity Keys?
Absolutely.
As we get off here.
JD, again, thank you so much for having me. I will come on anytime you would like me on. It was a lot of fun. Please follow me at Very Comfy, VRYCMFY on all the socials, including Lens, verycomfy.lens, infinitykeys.io. There's treasure everywhere. Thank you so much, folks.
Beauty. Thanks, brother. Quick reminder to everybody, we're live show 12:30 Eastern, Monday to Friday. Like, share, subscribe, show us the love. And with that, I say to you today, Chair, go FUD yourself. Later.